Say it out loud. I'm a survivor of workplace abuse. Giving a name to what you're going through is the crucial start to healing. Heliana Ramirez, PhD, is one of the nation's leading experts in workplace trauma recovery. Here's part two of the legal implications of workplace abuse. This horrible, unconscionable behavior that so many, especially Black women and brown women, are dealing with in the workplace. And that is the notion that most of us believe, that we will find justice by seeking a legal remedy, if you will. And I was fooled into believing that as well. And I don't believe that people understand that the current laws, even though discrimination technically is outlawed and we're supposed to be protected, it really does not do what it's supposed to do. When you think about the 1964 Civil Rights Act, we have allowed white people to determine what discrimination is. They have said, if you can't prove intent, which means, did they call you the N word? Did they put a noose on your desk? If they didn't do that, well, the behavior was unconscionable. It was horrible. It was bad, but we cannot hold them accountable. And so you really don't have any recourse. But absent an independent investigation, absent laws that are really tough and are strengthened, we really don't get very far. I mean, I filed a federal lawsuit, and near the end, I realized they're still going to win. And it's important for me to share this story because if I sign an NDA and accept the settlement, then I walk away and nothing is done. I wanted to go to a jury. I wanted to walk them through court. I wanted them to speak truth under oath. I wanted the holes in their narratives to be seen and to be heard by everyone. And it just was not a fair fight. But so many of us are believing, oh, I'm going to file this discrimination lawsuit. And I tell people all the time, don't waste your money. Don't waste your time, because it is also traumatic. It is trauma upon trauma upon trauma. And companies know it. Companies know it. And they want to run you through the ringer to the point where you finally just give up. And yet they still win. How do we change this?
I'm taking a deep breath because I want to communicate in a professional manner, and
Mhm.
I can swear in English and Spanish. So I'm just, I'm furious. I'm irate that they've done this to you.
Me
And I
too.
know that they do this to so many people around the nation. Right now,
Mhm.
it is being done to
Mhm.
people. And there's good reason to think that it probably will happen even more in the near future. So I'm just, I'm
Yeah.
taking an extra moment, taking an extra beat, because out of respect
Yeah.
for
Take it
you
up.
and your audience here, that yeah. So I think there are several things for us to consider. The first is that you are absolutely right. The way that court is set up, and everything that leads to court, is
Leads to it. Yeah.
intentionally trying to destabilize the person who's already been injured.
Yes.
And honestly, once those brain changes start to happen, and they happen for everyone, if you put enough people under chronic stress, there will be a flooding of stress hormones that will lead to inflammation and illness. And it is not about strength. We cannot positive think our way out of this. We cannot pray it away. It happens to anyone under these circumstances. And it is, if no one has told you recently, you are remarkable that you had that kind of fortitude to go toe to toe with these people. I think for many people, it's actually preconscious. So thinking about the work of Dr. Resmaa
Mhm.
Menakem, who wrote My Grandmother's Hands and who has this amazing online platform called Black
Mhm.
Octopus Society, and the practice of somatic
Mm.
abolitionism, what he teaches about. So this is in part two, your last question about like, what can we do? If we need to go to court, I think it's really important that we build up plenty of resources that help to um, attend to the racial trauma that we are experiencing. So we need to really shore up our resources so that we can show up in a way that we and know that we are bringing all of our ancestors behind us. When we show up to fight, we don't show up
Ooh.
alone. And right? And so when we can walk in that kind of power,
Mhm.
and that is why they do this, because on a certain level, they know they did not erase us. They did not erase our grandparents, our grandparents,
Mm.
grandparents, grandparents. And that's why they
Mm.
have this kind of a nervous system
Mm.
reaction. That's one level. I think another reason why they have this kind of a reaction is because in a society where racism is taught from the moment of, well, frankly, from the moment of conception, but truly, as soon as babies are born, they are being inundated
Yeah.
with racialized messaging.
Hmm.
And for people of color, we have to
Yeah.
learn early on how to navigate and how to see the matrix, essentially, if you will,
That's
all of
right.
the, right, the
Hmm.
invisible power plays that are
Hmm.
constantly happening in society. Dr. Joy DeGruy, who wrote Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, talks about this very powerfully, where she mentions in the beginning of her book, she talks about a Black woman who's at, if I'm not mistaken, standing at a bank, and there she has a child with her. And the way that she has to encourage that child to be very quiet and act in a certain way, and a white woman who's in line, her child can do all sorts of things and nobody thinks twice about it. So at a very, very, very young age, the nervous systems of children of color are being trained to control themselves in a way that white people don't have to. And so what happens is in a workplace,
Whew.
white people will have a reaction to your melanin before you say a single word. And it is um, the brain is connected to all the organs in our body through the vagus nerve, and 80% of the communication actually goes from our body up to our brains, not our brains to our bodies. So it's the kind of thing like if you're walking along a path and there's something that's like
Mhm.
this across the path in front of you, we're probably jumping back before the brain has the chance to come up with the word snake. And then to realize, oh, it was just a garden hose, right? So we're having these
Wow.
automatic reactions.
Yeah.
And the
Mhm.
same thing happens in terms of race in the workplace. So, how do we
Mhm.
prepare for that when we go to HR and in good faith say, well, gosh, there's a law that's anti-discrimination law. We even have a policy here in an employee handbook that you can't be a racist fool to your coworker. We go and we tell the HR person that, and the HR person is lovely oftentimes and says all of the right things to
Yeah.
disarm you and make you
Mhm.
think that they're really going to do the
Oh,
thing. And right.
yeah.
Meanwhile, what they're
Oh, yeah.
really doing is their job, which is to protect the company. And
That's
so
it.
they'll do things like run out our timeline because they know that you've got
Mhm.
180 days from the incident to report it to EEOC or what have
Mhm.
you. They are intentionally doing things. And this is what I was meaning before about the way that white culture happens in predominantly white institutions. They know how to send the messages, and in particular, white women, frankly, know how to send the messages in a way that will
Mhm.
make us think, oh, yeah, that person actually is on my side.
Mhm.
The challenge, I think, for us is when we have to override the sense of danger that we have had over and over throughout our lives, from elementary school on up through any kind of institution, when we go to the doctor or anything else, we have to override that sense of danger. In the workplace, it can become even more dangerous because if we don't know that there is a 180-day timeline, we don't know that we need to put it in writing or it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that, but to your question was like, uh, how do we prep ourselves if we need to go to court? So I think one is we want to surround ourselves with resources that speak to the
Right.
racial trauma.
Mhm.
Secondly, if we can, find an attorney who actually is a trauma-informed attorney, because there are many things that happen on the day-to-day that are re-traumatizing for workplace abuse survivors that need not
Mhm.
be that way.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, I think we know from research on learning about things like DARVO, Defend, Attack, Reverse Victim and Offender, Dr. Jennifer
Mhm.
Freyd's work out of University of Oregon, just learning that that is a thing
Mhm.
is associated with better outcome for employees. So some of it is learning about the kinds of hoo-ha, as I like to say in polite society, that we know they're going to throw at us, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so some of that hoo-ha is like race-based traumatic stress. And luckily, we have, because of the work of Dr. Carter, we have this incredible array of tools that we know we can measure. You can see now, these are standardized, objective
Yes.
measures that show that there is a racialized trauma that's happening. So some of it is also just knowing what some of those resources are.
What do you say to that woman who will be watching, and even a man, whoever it is, who is contemplating? walking away because they're listening to you and they realize I'm in an abusive relationship at work with my coworkers, and they're not financially prepared to walk away. And I think that's one of the main reasons why many of us stay. As you mentioned, okay, that person might eventually leave, or give me another 2 years, I can handle it. Meanwhile, you are continuing to harm yourself. What is the number one tip, if you will, that you would tell someone, not to convince them, but just to say, encourage them to really consider walking away? Because 9 times out of 10, the environment is not going to change. So you have to change your environment. Yet, going to another place, you're likely going to experience the same toxic behaviors.
You're bringing it. And I'm here with you for this conversation because this is the conversation that, frankly, we need back in high
Thank you.
school. A couple of pieces. The first thing is when our brains are in that trauma, have been changed by that chronic traumatic stress and the stress hormone
Mhm,
flooding, it is
mhm,
literally, it becomes very, very difficult for us to critically analyze situations. And the brain will essentially play tricks on us, if you will,
mhm.
where it becomes difficult to, well, we will have a trauma response to innocuous things like the sound of an email notification can cause the body to, you know, or when
Yeah.
we jump into a Zoom or anything that is associated with our abuse can create such an alarm
Mhm,
system. And every time that that happens, it causes the thinking part of the brain to go offline. So what I really encourage people to do, if they have the capacity to take family medical leave, get some space
mhm,
away from that abusive workplace so that your nervous system can start to calm down a little bit so you can really assess your options
mhm.
during that time. And family medical leave, and it's based off, it's going to be different in different states and so on, but there
Right.
is a Better
Mhm,
Balance, which is a free 1-800 number where you can get legal
mhm,
advice specifically from people who are trained in employment law to learn about your rights in that local state. You can, if you can get on family medical leave, and if you have any vacation or sick time saved up, that can be paid leave. But what family medical leave does is it protects you so they can't fire you while you're on leave. Now, if they are sloppy enough to fire you while you're on leave, now you've got a pretty cut and dry
now
kind
you
of
have a
lawsuit
good
on your
case.
hand.
Right.
Right. So
Hmm.
I'm like, bring it,
Hmm.
let's,
Bring it
if you
on, bring
want to
it
go
on.
toe
That's
to toe,
right.
let's go toe to toe. So
Hmm.
the first thing is get yourself some space so that you can have the best, the strongest part of your brain online to really look at
Mhm.
what all your options are. This, and during that time, I really encourage people to go in while you still have health insurance and get those medical checks to see, a full battery of, blood tests and so on to see if you
Yeah.
do have any damage to your body at this point from the
Mhm.
stress related illness, because we can make demands. We should never just walk out empty handed. And I want to credit the anti-HR lady um, who talked about this. Anne Marie Archer is her name, and she's brilliant.
Mhm.
If people are looking for some information, I
Mhm.
highly
Yeah.
encourage people to look up her work. But she talks about don't walk away empty handed. Nobody should walk away empty handed. So then after you've had a chance to help your nervous system settle, you've gotten some blood work done and spoken to a doctor saying, I've been in a really stressful workplace. Can you please help me to figure out whether I have any physical harm from this? I've called the Better Balance. I know what my rights are. Then is the time that you can, in a strategic way, make a demand on that company. We
Mhm.
should never be walking out empty-handed. And so the thing is to make a demand and ensure that they're going to pay you something before you walk out. Now,
Yeah.
um, my understanding is that 96% of the lawsuits that are filed against employers never even make it to court
They never make it to
because
court.
most employers want to negotiate outside of court.
Mhm.
So I think that's the kind of information that we can get when we call Better Balance or any other legal helplines like this. And for people to know that, they might think, oh, I don't want to file a lawsuit. That's too much. It will take too long. It's too traumatic. That's it. Very true. and
True.
it may not get there. The second piece, people say, well, I can't hire a lawyer. I don't have the funds to do so. There are a number of lawyers who work on contingency, which means that we put no money down when we hire them. They only will take money after a settlement or after a win. Hopefully that, if somebody goes for an actual win. To find an attorney, people say, I don't even know where to start looking. The National Employment Lawyers Association, NELA, NELA, they have a lawyer exchange. It's simple. You go in, you put in your zip code, and they'll give you a list of attorneys. So I think that for many people, they might even say something like they speak to an attorney, they'll get a free 20-minute consultation. Make the
Mhm.
most of that consultation and know
Yeah.
that when our brains are traumatized, when we start to tell our story to someone, it can come out like gobbledygook.
Yeah.
And when we go into that 20-minute intake, that's our time to sell our case to the attorney. The attorney will take us on if they feel like we have a solid case. So working with an advocate who knows how to do such things, how to organize the storyline so it is most effective and compelling to a
Mhm.
potential attorney. I would recommend people like Michelle Simon, who is an attorney herself and does coaching for workplace abuse survivors, and she's trauma informed. So she actually will sit down with a
Mm.
person and help them figure out these are the key details that you need to present to the attorney when you have that 20-minute intake.
Oh, there's so many good gems there. Thank you for all of those. That's so, so good. I cannot wait to share with everyone. Last question here. Obviously, now with the new federal administration, we are seeing, and I have been very, very clear on social media. I don't hold my tongue. I'm never going to hold back because I tell people, they're like, well, why are you talking about politics? And I'm like, it's not political. This is about how we treat people. This is about humanity and the lack of dignity and respect that we're seeing from his administration and specifically from him. So I literally say that the federal government is basically the largest employer in the country. And you have the White House and this person at the helm who is showing us every single day how he is denigrating the humanity of people and now globally as well. How in the world are we going to make it? And again, it's a rhetorical question, but it is a question of how do we sustain ourselves? Because for those of us who have been traumatized in the workplace, we are being traumatized on a daily basis. The headlines, you're walking, the newspapers, radio, you cannot escape it. As much as I try to even not watch the news, you can't escape it. And it literally just makes my blood boil. And I cannot believe we are living through this with who I literally call the bully in chief. He is the number one example of what workplace bullying looks like. And we're seeing it across the board for everyone especially federal workers right now. What do we do? How can we make it through the next 4 years?
I'll just be blunt. There's no easy answer to this because I don't think that we have even
Yeah.
seen the full scale of the horror that is about to befall us. As a
Mhm.
workplace abuse survivor, I am now allergic to gaslighting. If I am around somebody who is trying to
That
do
part.
some psychological manipulation,
Yes.
I can see it from a mile away. And
Me too.
right? And so,
Me too.
all this stuff where they're using, oh, DEI is the reason why that plane crashed. Excuse me. Come on.
Excuse me.
This is an
Yeah,
outrage.
right.
And
Hmm.
so I think part of it is for those of us who are workplace abuse survivors, I think that many of us end up with finely tuned BS readers, frankly. I don't know a polite way to
All
say
day
it.
long. Yes.
And so we need to trust ourselves. And I
Hmm.
think that we really actually have a gift now that we can share with others.
Yes.
And we need to be very, very clear who we allow close to us right now. We do not want to have anyone near us. I don't care if they're family, friends, neighbors, whomever, who are constantly telling us to ignore what our brains know is actually
Amen.
happening.
Yeah.
We cannot have them in our space. I think the other piece is to acknowledge that for many of us, and there's a statistic that comes out of the Workplace Bullying Institute, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's something like 67.5% of workplace abuse survivors have pre-existing interpersonal trauma. And so this would
Mm,
be from childhood, from romantic relationships, and so on.
mhm, mhm,
And it changes us when we have people who are supposed to protect us, whether it was a parent
mhm.
or a teacher or a coach or a boss at work or an HR department. It causes a moral injury where suddenly it's hard for us to know that we can trust any kind of an institution.
Yeah.
And over time, we can end up with complex trauma. So we have multiple traumas. They can lead not just to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, but complex PTSD. And
Mhm.
it means that we can heal. We can all heal, but we have to be very, very careful about what we allow in our space. So that's one piece of it. I think the other piece of
Yeah.
it is even more now than ever, we need to define for ourselves what is success, what is professional success, what is a good life, because this toxic society has taught us that we have to build legacies of wealth. Well, many of us, that's not even an option. That our worth is determined by the kind of car that we drive or what type of
Mhm.
school our kids go to or what have you. This is killing us.
Mm.
This pressure to be
Yeah.
ground down to make money for somebody else is killing us. And I think many of our families who have histories of chattel slavery, colonization, migrant farm working, whatever it is, people, very well-intentioned people will say, "Ay, mija," which means my daughter, don't let them run you out. You
Mm.
stand there and you fight. Don't let them run you out. And they mean that with good intention, but they don't
Yeah.
understand how injured we are by these workplaces. So I think that's the other piece is surrounding ourselves with people like you, Andrea, so that we can follow you on
No.
LinkedIn and we can listen to your interviews because what you're bringing sanity to
Mm.
truly an insane situation. Why in the world would any employer want to allow a work environment where their best
Mm.
assets that they require to do their business
Yeah.
would be destroyed?
We continue our conversation in part 3.